Bailey. She is the supervisor for gifted education and talent development, and she will be our presenter for the evening for Gifted at a Glance.
Thank you. Hi, everyone. Good evening. I'm happy to be here tonight to talk to you about the Gifted Education and Talent Development Program in Prince William County Schools. So let me share my screen. All right, my contact information is here on this screen. We'll have time at the end to answer questions, but if there is something that we don't answer or we run out of time or you have something a little more specific to your child, if you want to reach me directly, you see my email address right here. Okay, so in our time together tonight, we're going to cover these topics. We're going to look at the definition of gifted. We're going to talk about look-fors that you may notice at home with a gifted child. We're going to talk about the Gifted Education and Talent Development Program, what we do, what our goals are, what it looks like. And then we'll talk about the identification process and how to navigate that as a parent. And we'll end with some parent resources. If your child has already been identified as gifted and they're in the program, if you'd like to learn about ways to support them at home, we'll go into that a bit. And then hopefully at the end, we'll have a few minutes for questions. But as I said, if we don't get to your question, feel free to email me. Okay, we're going to start with the definition of gifted. So we follow the Virginia state definition of a gifted student. And that is a student who demonstrates high level of accomplishment or who shows exceptional academic potential beyond their age peers of similar experience or environment. So in Prince William County, we identify in these areas. So an overall identification called GIA, General Intellectual Aptitude, that means their strengths across many different disciplines or subject areas. So we look at that. And then we also look at specific areas. So a student who is really strong in language arts, for example, or math. We do those areas K through 12. And then history and social sciences and science, those identifications come into play in middle and high school. So a gifted student at home, what might you notice? This is a list that basically summarizes some things that are clues, things you may notice about your child at home. They're curious, they have a questioning attitude, they are a really keen observer, they pick up on details. They have a vivid imagination, learn quickly not only in school-related topics, but in outside interests as well. They pick up new skills and new ideas really rapidly. A sophisticated sense of humor, exceptional memory. This next one, we see this a lot with gifted students, being highly sensitive to the world around them, not just in their small circle, but in the world and larger issues related to their community or human issues going on in the world, fairness, justice. Gifted students have strong communication skills, not just verbal skills, but nonverbal and written communication skills typically are very strong. They often are very motivated to learn or develop a new skill. Our English learners are quick to pick up that second language. So rapid acquisition of language is a strong sign. Intense interests, both interests inside of school and outside of school. And typically they enjoy problem solving. They're very persistent with challenging problems and with numbers and with puzzles. But all kids are different. Not every gifted student is going to exhibit all of these characteristics, but these are just some look-fors that you may see at home. So what is the Gifted Education and Talent Development Program? Well, in Prince William County Schools, we have resource services for students. That means students leave their regular classroom to receive their gifted services in a resource room provided by a gifted resource teacher who has the Virginia add-on endorsement in their certification. So they've been trained to work with gifted learners. There is a regular schedule, and we'll talk about how much time they spend with the gifted teacher in another slide in a moment. What they do with us, that question comes up a lot. What do they do when they go to the resource room? Well, we use curriculum that comes from a variety of sources. A lot of universities that specialize in curriculum for gifted and advanced learners. For example, the College of William and Mary has a large curriculum development arm of their Department of Education. So we get a lot of our units from them. UVA has units that we use. UConn, University of Connecticut, has a really strong math series we use in elementary school. So we have a variety of different units. Everything is aligned with standards, but typically our gifted learners are working above grade level standards, and they're doing challenging curriculum that's designed for their academic needs. Now, if you've been in Prince William County for a while, you may have heard the terms START and SIGNET. We used to go by those two terms. We have phased out START completely. We still hear SIGNET once in a while, but typically now we just talk about gifted resource services. But just know if you hear those two acronyms, that's all part of our program. So when they come to the gifted program, as I mentioned, everything we do is aligned with content, but we really focus on developing advanced thinking skills. So those process skills that students learn with us and then hopefully can apply and transfer to all areas, academically and in real life. So we focus on developing critical thinking, creative thinking, communication, and collaboration. You may recognize those as being 21st century skills, but where gifted really is set apart from what they do in the regular classroom is this idea of conceptual thinking. So students understand the connections that you can make between disciplines and those big ideas that connect disciplines together. And it's a lot more abstract thinking. So that's what we focus on. That's where we're really growing and developing in our students, because we want them to be independent thinkers and learners, informed and supportive collaborators, and exceptional leaders. We want these kids empowered so that they excel in advanced coursework as they move up into middle and high school and college and dual enrollment classes and their future careers. We're really trying to build and empower independent thinkers and learners. So what do gifted services look like? Let me start by saying that once your child is identified for gifted services, they don't need to be reevaluated. So as I go through the levels this evening, just know that elementary goes right into middle, which goes right into high school. There's no reevaluation process between each level. All of that happens automatically through the coding that your student has in the system. So the middle school will automatically know they are eligible for gifted services, and the high school will automatically know. So as they're planning for their scheduling, all of this will be automatic. So let's look at elementary school first. So let me start by saying that we have gifted services at every elementary school in Prince William County. Some schools have more than one teacher, depending on the number of gifted students in that building, but every school has at least one gifted teacher and a classroom where the students go to for their services. That's different than the past. We used to have certain schools were centers and kids got on buses and they traveled, but that's no longer the case. Every school is equipped with their own program and resources and teacher. So the students receive their resource services on site. So as our program progresses, we begin as early as kindergarten. They receive 25 minutes a week. And then first and second grade, they go to the resource room 45 minutes a week. Third grade is 90 minutes a week. And grades 4 and 5 are 225 minutes a week, which is essentially the whole school day. Those students go back to their regular classroom for recess and lunch and encore. So they still have those pieces with their regular class, but the academic day is with the gifted resource teacher. You can see that the minutes increase as students get older and they can handle more challenge and they have the stamina to really think at high levels for longer periods of time. We also in Prince William County cluster group the gifted students in the regular classroom. So they shouldn't be like the only gifted student that leaves to go once a week to the gifted resource room. So we cluster them, and that way the classroom teacher can differentiate instruction to challenge a small group of students instead of just one student or two students. And we also make sure that the classroom teachers have had training, that they understand how to work with gifted learners, that they understand the characteristics and needs, and know how to differentiate their instruction. So that plan for differentiation comes out every November in elementary school. The classroom teacher and the gifted teacher work together on a differentiated services plan that outlines what that challenge or differentiation is going to look like. So you know what options are available for your child. How are they being extended and enriched, not only in the regular classroom, but what are they doing in the gifted classroom to really stretch their thinking? So that comes out in the yearly DSP. And then we also have semester progress reports. A really important component of our program is that it's not graded. And by not grading the work that the students do, we allow them more intellectual freedom to try new things and to make mistakes and not to be stressed or worried about grades. And we do monitor their progress, though. You do receive every semester a progress report that shows how they are progressing in those thinking skills that we talked about. So you get information twice a year to kind of keep tabs on how your child is performing in the classroom. So that's elementary. Now, as I said, it just naturally goes on to middle school, and our program is set up in a similar way. Every middle school has their own gifted teacher. Many of our middle schools have more than one gifted teacher, and services are built into the student's schedule in middle school, which is really nice because the kids don't have to miss a class to go to the gifted room. So in 6th and 7th grade, they actually have 2 quarters of gifted services that are built into their schedule on the arts rotation. And so that they have a first semester and a second semester class. Typically, it's gifted services 1st and 3rd quarter or 2nd and 4th quarter. In 8th grade, because of scheduling in 8th grade and all of the course options, not all of our 8th graders will have an elective in their schedule that allows for the gifted class. So if they have that space in their schedule and they have an elective opening, then they'll have a gifted class in 8th grade. If that's not an option, and sometimes when they take languages and music and they have those other electives, some of those 8th graders have pull-out resource services. So they'll miss PE or one of the other classes on a rotating basis to get their services throughout the year. Also in middle school, which is different than elementary, there are actually advanced courses. So a really strong math student can be in extended math. They can accelerate 1 to 2 years above grade level in math. There's also extended language arts in 6th, 7th, and 8th grade. And there's an opportunity to take those high school credit classes, whether it be a world language like Spanish or French, or if it's algebra or geometry. There are opportunities for our strongest learners to earn high school credit while they're still in middle school. We also have DSPs, so you can see from the gifted teacher how instruction will be differentiated both in the regular classroom and in gifted services. And they also have progress reports. Again, they're not grades, A, B, C, D. Instead, it is a narrative and a rating of how they're progressing in terms of those advanced thinking skills. Next is high school, and this really does set Prince William County apart from almost every other school division in Virginia. So typically, high school services in other divisions are the advanced courses you can take, those AP, IB, Cambridge courses. We offer all of those courses, so those opportunities for advanced content are available to all gifted students, but we, in addition to that, continue our resource services. So this is over and above those advanced courses they can take. So every high school has a gifted teacher, at least one, and those gifted teachers offer Socratic seminars. So 18 hours per year of Socratic seminar service. And that allows students to really think at higher levels, to have a dialogue with their peers, to really explore topics. It very much is like a college seminar course. So those are available. Sometimes our gifted students find the rigor of the advanced courses enough for them, and they don't take advantage of those Socratic seminars, but they are available and open to students to join and have a higher level discussion and really explore topics at a much deeper level. We also have actual credit-bearing classes, gifted education multidisciplinary seminars, which is commonly known as GEMS. But sometimes when we just say GEMS, people think it's like a geology course, which is not the case. It's actually a full semester or a full year course where the students focus on those seminars. There's AP seminar and AP research that are available at some of our high schools. Garfield and Unity Reed have IB theory of knowledge. Brentsville and Potomac have ACE thinking skills and global perspectives. So these are all courses designed for advanced and gifted learners. And so they are options available. Gifted students may also apply for our Governor School at Innovation Park program. That's our partnership with George Mason. And they spend half of their day on campus at George Mason at Innovation Park, getting their STEM courses, and then the other half of their day at their base school, getting their humanities courses. Or gifted students can apply for TJ in Fairfax County. That's 9th through 12th grade, and that is a full day Governor School. We also have summer residential Governor schools, which we are actually in the application process for those right now. Gifted students have an opportunity. The state of Virginia and Prince William County funds the students' participation in these college experiences. They actually go on a college campus and they live on the college campus for 3 weeks over the summer. They take classes, they learn what life is like in a dorm, and they have a lot of fun. So it's kind of like a summer camp slash early college experience. So the summer residential Governor School is available to rising 11th and 12th grade gifted learners. So now that I've talked about what the program looks like, K through 12, I just want to give you some information about the identification process. So all school divisions in the state of Virginia are required to have a multi-criteria process. Multi-criteria means there are many pieces of evidence and data that are collected, and the decision is made considering all of those pieces of evidence. So there's not one thing that gets the student in or one thing that keeps the student out. We look at a variety of different types of data in many different categories. So here's the process, and this is really condensed down. It is a very comprehensive process. We are making decisions about a student's learning needs, and those decisions continue through 12th grade, so we don't take that lightly. We really spend a lot of time in this process. It can take up to 90 instructional days to get all of the information gathered and to make decisions. So here's the process kind of in a nutshell, and then I'll go into more detail about a few of these. So it starts with a referral. Somebody has to refer the student for gifted evaluation. So that can be a teacher or professional of any type, a counselor, an administrator. You as a parent at any time can refer your child for gifted evaluation. A student can refer themselves, and we do see that, especially with our older students. And then finally, a universal screener or a data review. And we actually just finished our universal testing in 2nd, 3rd, 6th, and 9th grades. We'll talk a little bit more about that in a minute, but the Naglieri test of nonverbal abilities, that was administered to every 2nd, 6th, and 9th grader this year. And the cognitive abilities test, or COGAT, that was administered to every 3rd grader. So those are our universal tests, which means every student was given those tests, and then we take those results and we build a screening pool based on the strengths that we see from those tests. So after the student is referred, there has to be permission. We don't proceed with this process without your okay. Because we do dig into the student's testing history, we pull them out of class to do some additional testing and collecting work samples, so we get your written permission first. So after we have your permission, that's when we engage in this collection of evidence. This is the multi-criteria part I was mentioning. So there's so many pieces that we collect. So there's aptitude tests that we administer, and we get the data if the test was given as a part of universal screening. We look at the student's academic record. So that's, their grades, their SOL scores, their reading levels, math levels, all of the data that's been collected from their current teacher, but also we go back and look at previous years as well. We ask you as the parent to let us know about your child, what you're observing at home. You know your children best, so we want to hear from you. We also ask the students to tell us about themselves, right? So we want them to advocate for themselves and tell us what do they enjoy learning about. Tell us about their interests and their passions, so we get to know them as learners. We ask the professionals who work with your student to write a report where they tell us what they're observing in the classroom, and they share data and work samples, things they've collected. And then the students work with the gifted teacher on a math problem set. They do a controlled writing, and we collect just any type of data that's in the students' records. And then after all of that is gathered together, an IDP committee at the school reviews it all. That IDP committee includes a principal or assistant principal in the building, a counselor, classroom teachers, a gifted teacher. Sometimes specialists are included if it's appropriate. So if the student is an English learner, we would include the ESOL teacher. If the student receives any type of special education services, we would include someone from the special education department, just to make sure that we're really utilizing the expertise of all of the professionals that work with the child. That committee meets, they review all of the evidence, and they make a decision about gifted eligibility. They have a criteria that they follow, and then all decisions are reviewed and verified by my office. So just to make sure procedures were followed and everything is accurate, we look over every case before it's officially signed off on, and then you're notified of the decision. As I said, this is a lengthy process. It can take up to 90 days, but just I noted on the right, there is an appeals process at the end. So if the decision at the end is one that you don't agree with, then as a parent or a professional, you can also appeal to a different group, and that group will look at the case in more depth. So we talked about the referral process. So just going back really quickly, you saw a professional or a parent or self or universal screener. We're going to talk about the parent referral first. So at any time you can refer your child, kindergarten through 12th grade. We take referrals at all times of the year. It's never too early or too late. All you have to do is complete the referral and submit it to the gifted teacher at your child's school, or you can send it directly to us and we will get it to your child's teacher. Our email address is giftededucation@pwcs.edu. You can find this fillable form on our website. I'll show you at the end where it's located. Or if you want to talk to the gifted teacher in your building, they can give you a hard copy of this document. As long as you get this to us, we will make sure that the process gets underway. Now, a professional referral works a little bit differently. So the teacher or the counselor, they would submit that form I just showed you to the gifted teacher, or with universal screening, your child's name was sort of picked up through their score on the testing that was given. So a professional referral or a universal screening referral just means that your child's academic potential or achievement stands out among his or her peers. So we want to look closely at their strengths and their learning needs, because we wanted to determine if gifted services are appropriate for them. So we take professional referrals from all the sources that you see here, and the universal screening, like I talked about earlier, just wrapped up. So you may have just gotten a letter. If your child was picked up through universal screening, those letters, they started going out this week. Tomorrow actually is the last day to get them out from the universal screeners. So if you haven't heard anything yet, you may receive something in the next few days. But just know that's just one referral source. A child can be referred even if they did not score in a certain band on those tests. You can still refer, and a professional can still refer, because You know, a test is just one piece of information. It does not represent that child as completely as a learner. So once the child is referred, either by you or by a professional or the screener, these two pieces of paper are going to come home to you in the mail. You'll receive a letter and some other information, but these are the two pieces that need to come back. The first one, and the most important one that you send back first, is that permission for evaluation, because like I said earlier, we can't proceed without your permission. We can't do anything. So if you get this green permission for evaluation back to us, you know, right away, and that's just your name and your contact information and signature, the gifted teacher can start the process. The parent report is also included. We don't need that back immediately. You really do have time to think that part through, because we want you to tell us about your child and spend some time giving us examples. But you know, in the next couple weeks or so, you'll want to get the parent report in, so that can be considered in this process. So let's take a closer look at the parent report. It's a one-page document. It's also available online, so you can do it electronically if you don't want to handwrite it. You can also type it in. And what you'll notice in this is that they match the look-fors that we talked about in the very beginning of my presentation when I talked about what to look for at home. On the left, you can see the front page. It's the same look-fors. My child is curious, has a questioning attitude, is a keen observer. My child has a vivid imagination, learns quickly. Each one of those look-fors has a box for you to rate how often you see those behaviors at home, and then a place for you to give examples. So like I said before, not every child exhibits every single one of those behaviors all the time, but you're asked to kind of reflect on your child and give them a rating of not observed, sometimes, frequently, or always, and then put some examples down so that we can see why you gave it that rating. Now, if this form, if there's any difficulty in completing it, or if you need assistance with language, we are able to send these out in the requested language. But if you need some help with it, you can always contact the gifted teacher, and it can be completed as an interview. So let's look more closely, just so you understand, if you are in the process of writing this for your child, I just want to give you a couple examples so you know kind of what's expected and what would be most helpful. So here's an example. My child is curious, has a questioning attitude, is a keen observer. So this parent checked frequently, and they just wrote, you know, a couple of phrases about what they're noticing at home. So he asks about construction sites and the process of building new structures, notices small differences between houses. So that's the type of examples that we're looking for, just really brief, simple, but that give us sort of a window into their thinking. Here's another one, just to show you the difference between students and how you won't necessarily always put always. So this one is, my child has a vivid imagination. The first example, the parent checked always. She writes elaborate plays and stories in her journal. She creates detailed illustrations in her notebooks, uses coding to create worlds of her own, and writes original songs with lyrics and music. The second example is not observed. And the parent wrote, he's a very factual kid and is not interested in make-believe play or stories. So just to show you that not every gifted student necessarily has a vivid imagination. Some students are really factual, and they like to stick with nonfiction versus fiction. And so in that case, the parent wrote not observed and sort of explained it a bit. Here's another one. My child has a subtle or sophisticated sense of humor. The first parent wrote always. She understands sarcasm and dry humor when others use it, easily banters back and forth with children and adults older than her, tells jokes kids her age don't understand. And then the second example is just sometimes. He can understand and find humor in TV shows and stories, but doesn't usually come up with jokes or funny stories on his own. And one last one, just because we see this so much with our gifted learners, that really intense sensitivity. So my child is sensitive to human issues, is concerned with fairness and justice. This parent checked always. He wanted to collect food and send money to help people impacted by the recent hurricane. He becomes sad when he sees commercials about dogs who need homes and very concerned with fairness and rule following when playing games at home. So I hope this helped to give you some examples. We've tried to simplify the parent form over the years. Sometimes the feedback we would hear is the parents say, I feel like I'm being tested for gifted. And we don't want it to feel like that for you as a parent. We just want you to have an opportunity to share some insight with us so that we have a sense of what you're observing at home. And sometimes kids exhibit behaviors at home that they don't at school. So it gives us a more complete picture of the student. So going back to our flow chart here, you can see that all of that evidence is gathered. You can see where your parent report fits in there. The IDP committee meets and discusses everything, as I mentioned, and then they make a decision based on what they see in front of them. They do have a set criteria that they follow, and they have 4 options for decisions. They may find that the student is eligible for gifted services. They'll decide what services are required, and then we can start services right away. Now, the only exception to that is if it's at the very end of the year, then obviously we would start the following year. But at this time of the year in particular, as soon as we can get the student identified, they can begin services right away. The second option is that the student might be monitored. And what that means is the committee did not have enough information, or they wanted something further before making the decision. So that just means the gifted teacher is being asked to gather more evidence and more information and bring the case back to the next committee meeting. A student might be found ineligible, and that does not mean the door is closed to gifted services. That means at this time, the evidence does not support the need for gifted resource services, but the door is never closed. We can go back and we can look as the student grows and develops over time. We can go back and look the following year to see if evidence is more supportive in a subsequent year. So the door isn't closed, and it does not mean your child is not gifted. They're not denied or anything like that. It just means we don't have the evidence right now, and we can look at the student again after a year at least and see if anything has changed. And then finally, for our youngest learners in kindergarten through grade 2, we have a program called the Early Talent Development Program. And what that means is that the student is showing potential for gifted identification. We don't have enough evidence yet, but there is enough there, enough potential, and the spark is there. We want to work with that child and with that child's teacher. We want to build a portfolio of work samples, and we want to bring them back by the end of 3rd grade to look at them again. So we do some targeted intervention with them and with their teacher to make sure that they're getting a lot of challenge and enrichment in the classroom. And we're going to bring them back after we've had some time to kind of work with them and grow them a bit. We're going to bring them back by the end of 3rd grade. And hopefully at that point, we'll have all the evidence we need to place them in the gifted program. So as I mentioned, there is an appeals process at the end. So this is a very comprehensive and lengthy process. But every student and every situation is unique. If there is a need after the decision is rendered, if there's a need to look at it again, if you or a professional doesn't agree with the decision, we can bring it forward to the appeals committee. The request just needs to be made within 10 instructional days of the notification, and then we'll schedule an appointment, and the appeals committee does a more in-depth review of the student case. They can ask questions, consider new evidence, and they can update the decision. So if you would like to have the case appealed, you just contact your gifted teacher, or you could contact my office. And typically what you would do is review the folder, see everything that was collected. You could see what the areas that needed more evidence were, so that you would have a sense of what you could contribute at the appeals committee. So finally, I wanted to talk about supporting your gifted child at home. So if you already have a gifted learner, or suspect you have a gifted learner and you're interested with what you could do at home as parents to really nurture that giftedness, I'm going to talk a few minutes about that. So this comes from NAGC, the National Association for Gifted Children. They put out quite a few parent tip sheets that are all very grounded in research. They have had sort of leading experts in the field write these tip sheets so that parents have resources and things they can refer to. And these are just some tips, and I think they're all just excellent ideas for you as parents. So starting with collecting resources on your child's topics of interest, such as books, videos, and websites. So gifted students can have a really wide variety of interests. Some of them might be based on something they learned in school, and sometimes it can be completely unrelated to school. But to really give them opportunities to go to the library, to look up things with your supervision, like on the internet, and to learn more because they're passionate in it. So to really feed that interest and passion by helping them find resources. Make time to talk to your child every day and encourage his or her active questioning. Help them find peers or groups who share similar interests. Gifted students sometimes have trouble finding their intellectual peers, kids they really relate to. So if you can help them find peers or find friends that have similar interests, I think that's always a really positive thing to do. Know that gifted children may be able to have very adult conversations about advanced topics, but just remember their age and allow them the freedoms and the responsibilities that are appropriate for their individual emotional or social development. Gifted children are often highly observant and sensitive to social issues and fairness. So model the behavior and respect of others that you expect of your child. Give them opportunities to participate in acts of service that can make a difference. That can be so powerful. Those lemonade stands or the collecting the dog food for the shelter. I mean, those opportunities where kids can feel like they are doing something to improve a problem or to make the world better. It's very rewarding, but also very powerful for a gifted student to know that they can make a difference. So that's always a good thing to encourage. Look for challenging opportunities outside of school. Many of our schools have clubs and opportunities for kids to stay after school or go early to learn in robotics or the game of 24, many different opportunities, but there are also many things in our community. In Prince William County, we have so many enrichment opportunities that are free through our public library system, through museums in our area, through the Parks and Rec. There are just so many great options around here. So look for ways that you can enrich your child outside of school using those resources. This last one is a very important one. Encourage your child to take risks. Our gifted students can be perfectionists. They can be so scared to make mistakes or not get an A+ on everything. And I think it's really important for us to teach kids as early as possible that mistakes are learning opportunities. You know, when you make a mistake, okay, you figure out what you did wrong, you correct it, and you move on. And a great way for you to teach that to your students is to model that yourself. Like look for ways to problem solve and admit it when you make a mistake and talk about how to learn from it and to grow from it. And that growth mindset is just really important for kids. So as I mentioned, NAGC has many different topics where they give parent tip sheets on. So I'll share this presentation and you can hit the hyperlink and see all the different tip sheets. There's also a lot of really great books out there to read as a parent. I just put 5 here that I'm very familiar with that I've read. I think they're all really good examples of resources for parents to better understand and work with their gifted students. So just a few to pick from. There are many more than this, but these are just a few that I can recommend. And then if you have any questions, we'll have a little bit of time today, but know that the gifted resource teacher in your child's school can answer any questions you have. We also have a pretty robust website. So if you go to pwcs.edu, go to families, academic programs, you're looking for gifted education and talent development. When you find our website, it's filled with information about the identification process, about enrichment opportunities, the referral form, the parent report. And there are 2 webinars, one in English and one in Spanish, that talks in depth about the identification process. So I gave you a really quick overview, but these 2 webinars, it's the same content, it's just they're narrated in 2 different languages. They will walk you through in more detail all of the steps and like writing the professional or the parent report, those examples. They'll walk you through a few more of those. And if English or Spanish is not your language of choice, know that there are transcripts available so you can read along in Spanish, Arabic, Chinese, English, Farsi, Korean, Pashto, Urdu, or Vietnamese. Okay, that concludes the PowerPoint. So at this time, we have about 15 minutes. If there are any questions that are kind of good for the group, if you have a really specific question about your child or your child's school, I would encourage you to email me. Again, my email address is BaileyBS, so BAILEY, B as in boy, S as in Sam, at PWCS.edu. But if you have questions that others may also have and you'd like to ask them now, please feel free to unmute, or I don't know, Yannette, is the chat box open now so they can ask?
Heather, can we open up the chat?
Chat box is on.
Perfect. We have someone that raised their hand. Mr. Tiemann?
Hi, good evening. So
Hi.
I spent the first of all, thank you for this presentation. I found it really informative. Unfortunately, I was driving home for most of the presentation. I missed a few details. So I'd like to go back and kind of have an instant replay on this presentation. I see it's recording. Are you going to send out a link to where this recording is stored, or at least to the power slides or PowerPoint
Yes, I'm
slides?
going to send a follow-up email tomorrow to everyone who registered, and I'm going to include both the PowerPoint and the recording.
Excellent. Thank you.
Brenda, there's a question in the chat. It says, what if your child is under the talent development category? Is there anything the parents need to do further?
No. So what will happen is when your child is in 3rd grade, we will go through the process. You'll get the paperwork again because we're going to look at them again. So right now, the work that's happening is with the gifted teacher and the classroom teacher. Your child is getting lots of enrichment opportunities, and they're working together and collecting information, collecting work samples. So we've got it covered here at school. But if you're noticing anything at home, if there are some things your child is doing or writing or creating at home, keep those things, keep a hold of them, take pictures of them or hold on to them until 3rd grade, because we can use them as work products or samples when the case comes back.
Do we have any other questions? All right. Well, I would like to thank everyone so much for joining us tonight. Thank you for Ms. Bailey for that wonderful presentation. We will be posting a survey link in the chat. Please take the time to fill it out. It shouldn't take too long. An email will be sent as a follow-up with the PowerPoint presentation as well as a copy of the recording.
There was one question that just popped in that I can respond to really quickly.
Go ahead.
Does the gifted program take into account for children who might be gifted but who have special needs? Yes, absolutely. Those are called 2E students. 2E or twice exceptional. Those are students who have like a gifted designation, but also have a special need. And so that's why we include the gifted teacher along with the special education teacher in the identification process so that we have advocates who are talking about the student and their strengths and any accommodations they might need for testing. So all of those things are absolutely considered in that process.
And thank you all. What I'll do is when I send the follow-up email, I will also include Ms. Bailey's email address should you have any questions, and then a link to the website for more gifted information. So thank you all so much and have a great evening.
Thank you, everyone.